the leader, disaster cleanup and restoration? How do you make like it never even... But be prepared for anything! Serve bros like it never even happened.
When migraine strikes, you're faced with a choice. Ride it out with the trade-offs of treating, or push through the pain and symptoms. With Ubrelvy, there's another option. One dose works fast to eliminate migraine pain. Treat it anytime, anywhere, without worrying where you are or if it's too late. Do not take with strong CYP3A4 inhibitors. Allergic reactions to Ubrelvy can happen. Most common side effects were nausea and sleepiness. Migraine pain relief starts with you. Ask about Ubrelvy. Learn how AbbVie could help you save.
Hey, get away! 10 years ago, we invented the Ring Video Doorbell for moments like these.
You found your wallet.
And Ring security cameras for moments like these. Where are you? With Ring, you're always home. Learn more at ring.com.
That's it for us. The news continues. The Source with Kaylin Collins starts now.
Tonight, straight from the Source, the special counsel drilling down on yet another Oval Office meeting. This time, Donald Trump bragged about election security months before attacking election security. Plus, see you in court. The governor of Texas throwing down a challenge to President Biden, the legal battle on the border over what the White House says is chaos and stunts. A 2024 contender who represented a border district is here with me. In Alabama, defying a Supreme Court order, a state lawmaker on the fight harkening back to the state's darkest history will join me. I'm Caitlin Collins, and this is The Source. Good evening. The grand jury here in Washington that is investigating Donald Trump and his actions surrounding January 6th will meet again tomorrow. That is the former president's legal team believes that he is on the verge of being indicted for potentially a third time. Tonight, we have new exclusive reporting on what Jack Smith is asking questions about. This time, another Oval Office meeting that happened in February of 2020. Sources tell CNN that in that meeting, Trump praised the very improvement to U.S. election security that he has now spent years attacking. This was right around the same time that his administration put out a report and had this quote here. The Department of Homeland Security's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency has helped state and local election officials secure online voter registration systems, voting machines, and other election infrastructure. Trump was apparently so on board with those changes that he pushed the FBI and Homeland Security to hold a press conference talking about what they had done. Then, just months later, of course, as we've all seen, he launched what has become years of baseless attacks on those very same election systems, something that he is still doing to this day.
Very dangerous thing for this country because they're cheap. They go and collect them. They're fraudulent in many cases. I don't want to see a crooked election. This election will be the most rigged election in history.
The only way we're going to lose this election is if the election is rigged. Remember that. It's the only way we're going to lose this election.
But they know it's going to be fraudulent. It's going to be fraud all over the place. I've been complaining very strongly about the ballots, and the ballots are a disaster.
I'm joined now by one of the reporters who broke this story, CNN's Evan Perez, as well as former federal prosecutor Shan Wu. Evan, let's start with what we know. Obviously, this is February of 2020. What was happening in this meeting? Who all was there?
Well, you had a number of important people from inside the White House, of course, people from the Homeland Security Department, people involved in some of those election security efforts, the FBI. They all were there because the former president wanted everyone to take credit for all the work that he was very proud of. He said his administration had been successful in securing the election system so that the 2020 election, in the end, the Homeland Security Department ended up declaring it the most secure election in U.S. history. The former presidents, though, at the time, really liked hearing all the work that was done. And, of course, you can see the contrast with him just months later, weeks later, actually, where he started undermining what he knew was the truth. And so one of the things that, this raises, obviously, for the investigation is, for prosecutors, they want to know his mindset. And this sort of gives a window into two sides of Trump when he's listening to his experts and everything that he says, they did great, versus when he's listening to his non-experts and he's going out peddling these false claims of fraud, blaming Venezuela and China and Italian satellites for things that he says cost him the election.
Hugo Chavez and all the like. Shan, what does it say to you that this is something that Jack Smith is asking about? I mean, I think that's what's the most notable about this is it's not just this meeting. There are other Oval Office meetings. Clearly, he has a lot of questions on Trump's mindset. But what do prosecutors need to know about this meeting? What is the intent of that?
Yeah, I think it really speaks to how wide-ranging Smith is being in the investigation. All of this evidence is gathering. It may not all, of course, be used in court. I'm going to pick and choose what's best for them to use, but he's really leaving no stone unturned. This particular point, I think, is interesting because it certainly shows at one point Trump's expressing that he has confidence in securing the election. Obviously, later he changed his mind. I think it's important to understand, though, they don't have to prove that he honestly believed the election was fine. He can continue to claim that, in my heart, I distrusted the results, whatever I was being told. What they need to prove, ultimately, is his intent to interfere. And that's a slightly nuanced distinction, but it's different than having to prove to the world that he honestly believed he lost. Evidence where he says, yeah, I think I lost, that's really damaging to his credibility, but it's not an element of their proof.
But, Evan, what does it speak to, given Trump was getting these kinds of briefings from these top officials? He knew how secure the systems were, what they were doing to beef it up going into the election, obviously with changes because of the pandemic. Yet he was still publicly saying, before a vote was even cast, that there was going to be widespread fraud.
I think it goes to what Sean is saying, which is it goes to the idea that the former president had one strategy, which was a political strategy, right? Which was to claim, just in case he was going to turn out on the losing end of this, to claim that it was not fair, that it was rigged. You hear him using that term a lot during the summer. And it's all because he is anticipating, or he's setting up certainly what ended up happening, which was he came out on the losing end. And so, I think if you're the prosecutors, you can look at both things and bifurcate it, right? On one hand, he's listening to his experts and he wants to take credit for everything that they've done. And even up till the end, he's hearing his White House counsel, he's hearing his attorney general, everyone telling him that these fraud claims were bogus. And he decides to follow his political whims, right, which was to claim that it was fraud so that he could try to remain in power.
Yeah, and all of this comes as we're looking at what Jack Smith is looking at, Shan, and Trump's team is bracing for an indictment. They believe it could happen potentially as soon as tomorrow. I mean, no one really seems to know. If and when that does come down, what are you going to be looking for when it comes to seeing what Jack Smith is asking about, but seeing what he actually thinks he could potentially prove and charge?
I think he has a history, Smith does, of doing the so-called speaking indictment. So we'll be looking for a pretty well laid out story here in terms of what happened. I'm particularly curious as to whether they're going to really rely upon the violence that happened and whether they're going to interweave that into the charges that they're choosing to bring forward. On the one hand, it's a very good thing for the D.C. jury because they were all aware of the violence that affected them. On the other hand, it may be easier for Trump to distance himself from the violence. I wasn't there breaking things. I told him to do things peacefully. But it's an integral part of what happened, and he's clearly laying a story that starts much earlier than that actual day, January 6th.
This takes back to February of 2020.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
I know it's going to be potentially fascinating, especially just given, obviously, he has much more power than the January 6th Congressional Committee did. Evan, great reporting. Shan, thank you very much. Joining me tonight is Republican presidential candidate and former Congressman Will Hurd. Congressman, you were a CIA officer for nearly 10 years. What do you make of Jack Smith's interest in Trump's mindset about election systems being secure, before he was aggressively attacking those very same election systems?
Well, I think he's going for this, creating a conspiracy, right? The FBI is known for this. They've done this in a number of white-collar crimes. I think that's what the focus is. We saw so much of the interviews that happened during the January 6th committee hearings. We saw the conclusion of the Fox News and Dominion lawsuit about the fact that so many people knew that what Donald Trump was saying was a lie. I think you have the video evidence. Donald Trump rallied everybody to come to the Capitol on January 6th. He told them to march down the street on January 6th. He basically told them to get Mike Pence. And to me, if we are sick and tired of this kind of thing, if we don't want to see this potentially happen again, then we need to make sure that Donald Trump loses in the Republican primary, because the likelihood that these court cases get resolved before that happens is very low. So it's time to, we need more people voting in this Republican primary to make sure that we don't see what we saw on January 6th ever happen again.
Yeah. He's on the verge of potentially being indicted for January 6th in that investigation. He reposted a meme over the weekend that read, January 6th will go down in history as the day that the government staged a riot to cover up the fact that they certified a fraudulent election. That's what Donald Trump reposted. I mean, beyond the fact that Trump was the one running the government that day, what do you make of that?
Well, look, this is, it's insane. It's literally the bottom line. And what's even wilder to me is that the number of people that are trying to run against Donald Trump are defending him. You know, you're not going to beat Donald Trump by kissing his butt or being a clone of him or licking his boots. You know, this is someone who is a national security threat to the United States. This is someone who willingly, like imagine if you had kids working on the Capitol that day, first time you're working for your hometown congressman, and you're hiding under your desk. That's absolutely crazy to me. And then the fact that he was setting this up all the way in the summer when you started getting reports that he was potentially could lose to Joe Biden. And what's frustrating to me is that you know who's excited about all this going on? Our adversaries. The Chinese government, the Russian government, the Iranian government, the North Korean government, all of them are gleeful that this kind of drama is going on. And unfortunately, if the Republican Party nominates Donald Trump as our nominee, then we're going to give 4 more years to Joe Biden, because this baggage is only increasing and it's only going to hurt more in a general election.
Senator Tim Scott said recently that he holds the rioters responsible for what happened that day, not Trump himself. Obviously, Senator Scott was there that day. Who do you believe is responsible for what happened on January 6th?
I think the people that were responsible are the people that sent the rioters and the people that were down there trying to do an insurrection, right? Like everybody, like Donald Trump is responsible. He's the one that fomented this. We know that he was planning and working with groups in advance. You know, that evidence has already come out in the January 6th hearings. And to me, those, you know, I wasn't in Congress. I had just left when that happened. And unfortunately, we have too many people that are supporting Donald Trump and are not calling a spade a spade. And we need more people that are willing to stand up. We need more people to vote in the Republican Party, because we can't handle 4 more years of Donald Trump or Joe Biden.
Well, we have more questions for you about the primary process. Of course, stand by, Congressman. Not just that, also the border battle that is going on with your home state and the Justice Department. We'll get to that in just a moment. Also ahead, Ukraine is now taking credit for today's drone strikes on Moscow, warning that Putin that more attacks could come. I'm going to speak with the former Defense Secretary, Leon Panetta, about this new flashpoint in the war.
Neighbor is hot. That's my husband. What? It's the Inspire implant he got. He's not struggling with CPAP anymore.
Oh, that wrist is working wonders for him.
And for me. Gotta go.
Naughty girl.
Hi, sweetie. Here comes the choo-choo train of love.
Inspire Sleep Apnea Innovation. Learn more and view important safety information at inspiresleep.com.
Martial arts is my passion.
I work out whenever I can.
But with my moderate to severe eczema, it can be tough.
My skin was so uncomfortable.
The itching was so bad.
Now I'm staying ahead of my eczema.
There's a power inside all of us to live our passion. And Dupixent works on the inside to help heal your skin from within. It helps block a key source of inflammation inside the body that can cause eczema, so adults can have long-lasting, clearer skin and fast itch relief. Serious allergic reactions can occur that can be severe. Tell your doctor about new or worsening eye problems such as eye pain or vision changes, including blurred vision, joint aches and pain, or a parasitic infection. Don't change or stop asthma medicines without talking to your doctor.
Healing from within is a powerful thing.
Ask your eczema specialist how Dupixent can help heal your skin from within.
Eva's about to learn her fear of missing out leads to overeating.
Totally eat stuff to not miss out.
And that's just a bit of psychology Eva learned from Noom Weight. Sign up now at Noom.com.
Clogged gutters can cause big problems fast. Until now. Call 833-LEAF Filter today for your free gutter inspection.
I've had terrible flooding problems on my porch. Now I understand why.
Right now, Leaf Filter is offering a free inspection on your schedule. Leaf Filter is a permanent gutter solution, so you never have to worry about costly damage from clogged gutters again.
Call us today and schedule your free inspection.
Schedule your free inspection. Call 833-LEAF Filter today or visit leaffilter.com.
Humpty Dumpty does it with a great fall. Wonderful pistachios. Get cracking.
Wealth-changing question. Has your advisor created a portfolio based only on your age and risk tolerance? That's simply not good enough. Your money deserves better, and so do you. At Creative Planning, our private wealth managers learn about you first, and then they create a customized plan and portfolio by partnering with our in-house money managers, accountants, and attorneys. Don't settle for a standard portfolio. Book your free meeting today at creativeplanning.com. Creative Planning, a richer way to wealth.
From roughage to radiance.
Be buttoned up to feel your best and look it by using Just for Men shampoo and hair color to eliminate gray in 5 easy minutes. It's time to look forward. Just for Men shampoo and color.
Tonight, the Justice Department is now suing the state of Texas over those floating barriers in the Rio Grande that the administration says violates the law. The Justice Department told Texas Governor, who's a Republican, I should note, Greg Abbott, to remove them last week, citing federal laws that protect free navigation along the waterway that you see there, as well as their concerns about the humanitarian issues at play here. Abbott refused to do so and argued that they are needed to deter migrants from crossing over from Mexico. And he wrote a letter to President Biden essentially saying, see you in court.
We will litigate it initially in a federal district court in the state of Texas. If we lose there, we will be going to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals and eventually all the way to the United States Supreme Court, because Texas is defending its sovereignty and its constitutional right to secure the border of our state and our country.
Former Congressman and Republican candidate for president Will Hurd is back with me now. Congressman, obviously you represented a district in Texas that encompasses more than 800 miles of the 1,200-mile Texas-Mexico border. You know these issues well. Do you agree that the Justice Department has the standing to take legal action here?
Well, the way this should have been resolved is Joe Biden should have picked up the phone, called Governor Abbott, and talk about what is the best way that we can share, use federal resources and state resources to address a humanitarian crisis that is not only impacting every community along the border in Texas, but communities throughout the United States. This is how this should have been resolved. There are probably some issues when it comes to the landowner rights that are happening in the border. There's an international boundary, the treaty that dictates how activity should happen along the border. But the fact that this is being trying to be sorted out in a court of law is not beneficial to anybody. What needs to happen is Texas and the United States and the U.S. government should be working together to get the Mexican government to do more on their side. 5.5 million people have come into this country illegally since Joe Biden has been in office. This crisis began under Donald Trump. It got significantly worse under Joe Biden. And this is not going to get resolved by these legal battles and everybody trying to fight in social media and the press.
Yeah, I should note illegal border crossings are actually at their lowest point in about 2 years, which is not what people were predicting when those Title 42 restrictions were lifted. But you just mentioned there, something that I think most people would like to believe, that the president could call the Texas governor and they could have a conversation about this. But I mean, given the fact that Greg Abbott, has bused migrants to the vice president's residence here in Washington and dropped them off in a political move, clearly, I mean, do you really think that a conversation between the two of them would have resolved this?
Well, it should, and let's talk about the realities of what's happening. It is about 110 degrees at night when the sun goes down in many of these places. You always see a decrease in the amount of people that are coming across the border illegally in the summer. It's not humane to allow human smugglers to have people go in these treacherous waters and come in between our ports of entry. It's illegal to come into a country in between our ports of entry. It's not humane to have people sleeping on the sidewalks in places like El Paso and Eagle Pass when it is over 100 degrees at night. And it's just not about busing people to California or New York. There's hundreds of people every single night that are flying out of airports to places all around the country. And so ultimately, we know what the problem is. You got to stop treating everybody as an asylum seeker. Donald Trump started this. This happened under Joe Biden. People wanting to come to the United States to get a good-paying job is not an excuse for asylum. You can't come in between our ports of entry. Why hasn't Joe Biden worked on trying to streamline legal immigration? It's 2023. We should be able to determine that Texas needs workers in the hospitality industry. Florida needs workers in agriculture. We should be able to address that. Joe Biden is doing nothing on this. And then also, how come the Mexican government is not helping us enough? So these are all the problems. And this is a problem squarely because of Joe Biden, and it started under Donald Trump. And if people want to see these kinds of debates happening, if people want to see someone who's not afraid to tell Donald Trump that he did the wrong thing in January 6th and was responsible for that, and I need y'all to go on heardforamerica.com and help me get on the debate stage so we can have these debates with Donald Trump and the rest of the Republican nominees.
Yeah, well, I should note Congress isn't doing much to fix immigration either. But on the debate stage, I'm glad you brought that up, because 7 candidates have now met that polling threshold that you have to meet to get on the first stage in a little over a month from now. I know you hope to qualify, but you have not qualified yet. What happens if you don't?
Well, I'm on week number 5 that we're working towards hitting our numbers. We got about 28 days in order to accomplish this. That's what we're working towards. We know what we need to do in order to do this. And here's what I'm learning. Folks want to see someone on the debate stage who is willing to take it to Donald Trump, who's not afraid of Donald Trump, who's not going to give him a pass on all the things that he's done wrong, who's going to talk about how he's lost. He hasn't won an election since 2016, but also someone who's going to talk about the future, about how do we deal with the Chinese government? How do we make sure that our kids are getting a world-class education? How do we make sure that they're getting, when they go to school, that they're in safe environments? These are the debates to have. And again, it's heardforamerica.com. All you have to do is give $1 and we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. And Caitlin, I said I'm not going to sign a pledge to support the nominee because I will not support Donald Trump. I can't lie to get access to a microphone. But Donald Trump hasn't even agreed yet that he was going to sign that pledge. So a lot could happen in the next 5 minutes.
Yeah, we'll see what does happen. The closest challenger to Trump right now, and it's not even really that close depending on which poll you're looking at in which state, is Governor Ron DeSantis. He is defending a new benchmark that was included in this overhaul to Florida's African American history standards. And the benchmark says middle schoolers should be instructed, and I'm quoting from it now, slaves develop skills which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. This is DeSantis defending it.
I think what they're doing is I think that they're probably going to show some of the folks that eventually parlayed being a blacksmith into doing things later in life.
What do you make of that defense?
Look, it is shocking to me, Caitlin, that in 2023, I have to say this. There was no upside to slavery. Slavery was not a jobs program. And also, Ron DeSantis just showed his lack of leadership by acting like it was somebody else's fault and not something that was done on his watch. Here is the reality. If you're going to talk about how African Americans, despite being treated like property, despite having zero freedoms or zero rights, that they still had a tremendous impact on our country, if you want to talk about that, that's great. But to imply that there was an upside, it is unacceptable. And what he should have done is say, listen, that was worded wrong. We're going to fix that. There is no upside to slavery. We're going to make sure that we talk about this and that our kids in schools get a proper understanding of our history. That's how a real leader would have solved this problem, not letting this continue to fester.
Congressman Will Hurd, thank you for joining us tonight.
It's always a pleasure to be on.
Protesters in Israel pouring into the streets after a vote to overhaul the Supreme Court's powers passed today, despite warnings from the White House that it shouldn't. And Ukraine is now claiming responsibility for those attacks you saw on Moscow inside the capital as Russia is continuing its assault on the Ukrainian port city.
At 87 years old, we still see the world with the wonder of new eyes, helping you discover untapped possibilities and relentlessly working with you to make them real. Old school grit, new world ideas. Morgan Stanley.
We really don't want people to think of feeding food like ours as spoiling their dogs. Good, real food is simple. It looks like food. It smells like food. It's what dogs are supposed to be eating.
In 1 second, Sarah will get a job offer somewhere sunnier, relocating in weeks.
Weeks?
Yeah, weeks.
Gotta sell the house.
Don't worry, sell to Open Door and move on your schedule.
Yes.
Request a cash offer at opendoor.com.
When you've tried everything.
I was getting chemical peels, bleaching cream.
This is melasma. I'm trying to get rid of it. I've tried everything.
Introducing Muesli Face RX, prescription skincare delivered straight to your door. The spot cream is 10 times more potent than over-the-counter and prescription alternatives, so you'll finally see a difference.
My skin looks amazing.
It's amazing.
I'm a loyal customer forever.
See for yourself at muesli.com/TV.
You pop them in, you go to bed, and they do all the work.
Straighten your teeth while you sleep with Smile Direct Club Nighttime Aligners.
They don't interfere with your daily lifestyle at all.
Choose easy. Choose Smile. Get started for free at SmileDirectClub.com.
Hey, bud.
Wow.
What's all this?
Well, it was too expensive, so I brought it here.
You know, with Priceline, you could actually take that trip for less than all this.
I made a horrible mistake.
Go to your happy price. Priceline.
Sunday, the whole story breaks down the criminal investigation of Donald Trump in Georgia.
This was somebody obsessed with overturning that election at all costs.
The whole story with Anderson Cooper, Sunday at 8 on CNN.
For the most comfortable, luxurious, eco-friendly, and affordable, handcrafted American-made mattresses on the market today. Delivered and set up in any room of your house. Safa, luxury mattresses made affordable.
Do you shop for vitamins at Walmart? Force Factor products powerfully improve your health, but they're also delicious, easy to use, and affordable. That's why Force Factor is now the #1 best-selling herbs and supplements brand at Walmart. Unleash your potential with Force Factor at Walmart.
I have a structured settlement and I need cash now. Call J.J. Wentworth, 877 cash now.
I have an annuity, but I need cash now.
Call J.J. Wentworth, 877 cash now.
It's your money. Use it when you need it.
Call J.J. Wentworth, 877 cash.
Alex Marquardt in Ukraine, and this is CNN.
Tonight, a new flashpoint in Vladimir Putin's war on Ukraine. Ukraine is now warning Moscow that it could see more drone strikes after they claimed responsibility for the unmanned drones that crashed into buildings in the Russian capital. And though the strikes did not cause major damage, they did hit inside the Russian Defense Ministry complex, which houses the GRU, Russia's military intelligence service. That comes after Ukraine says that Russian missiles destroyed dozens of cultural landmarks in Ukraine, including a historic cathedral in Odessa that you can see here. The church is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and dates back to the late 1700s. But this is just the latest in the wave of attacks that we've seen on the southern port city, where Russia is actively destroying Ukraine's grain reserves and therefore threatening the global food supply. Joining me now for more on this, Leon Panetta, former Defense Secretary and CIA Director under President Obama. Mr. Secretary, thank you for being here tonight. We seem to have hit a turning point where Ukraine is openly claiming responsibilities for some of these attacks that are happening inside Russia. I mean, just the fact that they happened, the fact that they're taking credit for it, what does it say to you about what stage of the conflict that we are in here?
Well, I think the Ukrainians are making a statement that Russia is not just going to have a license to attack their cities and their people and their cathedrals and not get pushback from the Ukrainians. And they're made very clear that they're going to respond. They're going to send these drones into Moscow. They're going to send drones into Crimea. They're going to hit the Russians back. I think that's the message that the Ukrainians are sending.
Yeah, because of course the Russians have obviously been bombarding Ukraine, but Russians have largely lived, without a fear of that. Ukraine's defense minister said today Kyiv's counteroffensive, it's behind schedule. It's not where they want it to be. How much do you believe that has to do just to the lack of weapons or the ammunition that they say they so desperately need?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. Obviously, look, this is a tough slog. It's not easy. The Russians have planted a huge number of mines. They've built fortifications. They have manpower. They control the air over those areas. The Ukrainians are struggling to be able to keep up with the arms that they need in order to hit the Russians. And so that combination, obviously, is what has thrown them off of their schedule. Now, the Ukrainians have made progress. They've been able to get back over a half of the land that the Russians acquired during the invasion. In addition to that, they continue to put pressure on the Russians in the east. But there's no question that, we're looking at one of two paths here. One is the Russian path, which is a war of attrition, a stalemate that ultimately can break the will of the United States, Ukrainians, and our allies. The other is the Ukrainian path, which is to have a successful initiative here to go after the Russians, break their line, push the Russians back, and ultimately force Putin either to withdraw or to negotiate. Hopefully that is the path that ultimately the Ukrainians, the United States, and our allies have to make sure takes place in this war.
We also saw what's happening in Israel today, where lawmakers enacted a major change in a law restricting essentially the ways in which the Supreme Court can overrule the government. Did you, seeing that, which the White House warned against, I should know, did you see that as a blow to the rule of law in Israel?
The bond that the United States has with Israel is built on the fact that Israel is a democracy, the only democracy in the Middle East, and that we share some basic values as democracies. And one of those important values is a system of checks and balances that makes sure that power is not going to be centralized in any one branch of government. I think what they did by enacting this limitation on the ability of the Supreme Court to have oversight over what happens in the government, impacts on their system of checks and balances, and very frankly weakens their democracy. That's not good for Israel, it's not good for the United States, and frankly, it's not good for the Middle East.
And of course, it's as Netanyahu himself is on trial for corruption charges. Mr. Secretary, before we go, 3 years ago, you signed your name to a letter alongside dozens of other intelligence officials saying, that the Hunter Biden email saga the letter said all the classic earmarks of a Russian information operation. You noted that the people who signed it said you didn't know for sure, of course, what it was. But given what we know now, do you wish that you hadn't signed that letter or been involved in it?
No, not at all. I signed that letter for one reason, which was to make the American people aware that the Russians deliberately were engaged in a disinformation campaign in the United States and trying to impact on our election and trying to impact on our ability to have free and fair elections. That's why I signed that letter. And very frankly, I have seen no evidence to the contrary that Russia has not engaged in that kind of disinformation campaign.
Right. But we just haven't seen evidence affirming that either. Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for your time and for your expertise tonight.
Good to be with you, Caitlin.
GOP Senator Mitt Romney has a new urgent message for his party, what he says Republicans must do, in his view, to block Donald Trump from becoming the Republican nominee. Plus, Governor Ron DeSantis is pushing the reset button again on his own White House run. Details on his new promise to deliver what they say is a, quote, leaner, meaner campaign.
Rich, velvety coffee. Cafe quality espresso. One high-pressure system that can do both. Brew to your heart's desire with the L'Or Barista system. A masterpiece in taste.
Clogged gutters are scary. Clogged gutters are messy. You tired of dealing with clogged gutters? Then call 833 Leaf Filter.
And never clean out clogged gutters again.
Our patented leaf filter system sits on top of your existing gutters, protecting your home with the technology of the future and making clogged gutters a thing of the past. Guaranteed.
You got better things to do than clean out clogged gutters. Call Leaf Filter today. We can help.
And clogged gutters for good. Call 833 Leaf Filter or visit leaffilter.com today.
They're off from school, but not really home. Images and videos. Social media, fine-tuned to suck them in and steal them away. Alone, you can't stop it. Together, we will. We have a plan. Join us. Search for something you love. Etsy has it. When migraine strikes, you're faced with a choice. Ride it out with the trade-offs of treating or push through the pain and symptoms. With Ubrelvy, there's another option. One dose works fast to eliminate migraine pain. Treat it anytime, anywhere, without worrying where you are or if it's too late. Do not take with strong CYP3A4 inhibitors. Allergic reactions to Ubrelvy can happen. Most common side effects were nausea and sleepiness. Migraine pain relief starts with you. Ask about Ubrelvy. Learn how AbbVie could help you save.
When you're the leader in disaster cleanup and restoration, how do you make like it never even happened happen? Woo! Yeah! By being prepared for anything!
Serve Pro, like it never even happened. Black unscripted television launches superstars. RuPaul brings us into the drag experience.
Oprah was the pioneer.
See It Loud, the history of black television. New episode Sunday at 9 on CNN.
Custom Ink helps us celebrate and drive our students' achievements with custom gear. They love Custom Ink's different styles and designs.
love how Custom Ink makes the process simple with their easy-to-use design lab, expert artists ready to help, and unbeatable customer service. Custom Ink allows our kids to show everyone their accomplishments and the pride they have in our school. When we place an order, I know they got our back, so we can focus on the kids.
Custom Ink has hundreds of products to help you feel connected. Upload your logo or start your design today at customink.com.
No, I can find someone. They love extra projects. We need promotional products.
I'm on it. Exclusive apparel, bags, high-tech items, and more. 4imprint takes the stress out of getting exactly what you need with the certainty that you'll get your promotional products on time and on budget. Make your go-to choice 4imprint.com. You can come out now. I'm on it.
4imprint, for certain.
This is CNN, the world's news network.
We are now less than 1 month away from the first Republican presidential primary debate. It's going to be happening in Milwaukee. And so far, 7 of the declared candidates have met the polling threshold that would get them a spot on that stage. The latest poll, which is from Fox Business, shows Trump with at least a 30-point lead in both Iowa and South Carolina. Trailing him in second, as you can see here, Governor Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, and Senator Tim Scott, all essentially in a statistical tie. Governor DeSantis, for his part, is rebooting yet again, now promising donors a leaner, meaner campaign. Tonight, all of this is happening as top Republican Party officials are still trying to convince the frontrunner, Donald Trump, to show up.
Ronald Reagan didn't do it, and a lot of other people didn't do it. When you have a big lead, you don't do it.
For more on this, I want to bring in CNN political commentator Karen Finney, Matt Lewis, senior columnist at the Daily Beast, and an author of the new book, Filthy Rich Politicians, The Swamp Creatures, Latte Liberals, and Ruling Class Elites Cashing In on America. We're going to get to that book in a moment, Matt, because obviously it's a topic I think everyone can agree on. But we're learning these new details about another reset that the DeSantis campaign is trying. It involves smaller events, getting him in front of voters in these early states like Iowa and South Carolina, and kind of what they say is embracing this underdog mentality. The question, of course, is, does it work?
Well, I think they have to do something. So I'm all for rejiggering and retooling or whatever, rebooting, whatever they want to do. I don't think it's going to work. And we have seen campaigns, John Kerry in 2004, John McCain in 2008, where it has worked. But I think the fundamental problem with Ron DeSantis, it's not about his staff, it's not about overhead or the burn rate. It's about Ron DeSantis. People don't like Ron DeSantis, but he can't fire himself. And so the shakeup has to be something else. So, they have to try this. But at the end of the day, you have a candidate who's running against Donald Trump, who's still wildly popular in the Republican Party, at least. And you have a candidate who, on paper, I think Ron DeSantis had a lot of pretty compelling arguments for why he should be the nominee. But he's just not a likable or charismatic person.
But also it feels like the Republican primary electorate has said, we want Donald Trump. We don't want the fake version from Florida. This is who we want. This is who we're going to support. So in that instance, DeSantis just doesn't offer anything. He's not been able to grow the base of support, his base of support throughout this period that he's been retooling. And it's hard to see how leaner, meaner is going to actually benefit him. I mean, it's more the establishment saying we're trying to pump him up, but it's not, voters just aren't buying it.
Yeah, I mean, there is still time. Obviously, we're still in the summer, but I mean, the debate obviously is seen as critical by a lot of people. And that's what was so interesting about that new poll, that obviously all the Republicans were waiting for it to come out yesterday, is to see how much people like Senator Tim Scott have gained ground. I mean, obviously, DeSantis' campaign for weeks now has been saying he deserves more scrutiny because essentially they would like for the heat to be on someone else as well.
Well, I mean, I was just talking about how Ron DeSantis, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people's opinion, lacks the wow factor, that certain something. Tim Scott has that. Tim Scott is likable, utterly likable. He's optimistic. And I think he has the potential to have a moment. He's the kind of candidate who I think could catch fire in a debate. I don't think he becomes the nominee, but I think he could have a moment. And then the question, I think, will be, does Donald Trump turn on him the way he went after, like, Ben Carson in 2016? Or does Tim Scott, I think he's even potentially in the running to be a running mate for Donald Trump.
Sure. I mean, although I think we're going to see, because the field is so large, people going up and down throughout the next several months. But that, again, that core base that supports Donald Trump just does not seem to be going anywhere. So you may see Nikki Haley, you may see, Tim Scott, again, sort of go up and down and up and down. But that core base, they still want Trump.
Well, and given that, Senator Romney put out a new op-ed in the Wall Street Journal today, speaking to everyone who is not named Donald Trump, and essentially saying, if all of these people stay in the race, you're going to see a repeat of 2016. I mean, he said, donors who are backing someone with a slim chance of winning should seek a commitment from the candidate that to drop out and endorse the person with the best chance of defeating Mr. Trump by February 26th. I mean, how are you going to convince those candidates, hey, you need to drop out?
Here we go again. I feel like I've been through this story before where, like, okay, if Ted Cruz wins Texas and Marco wins Florida, we can, look, I will say it is true. It really doesn't matter how many candidates are running. What does matter are when they do get out. So, but how do you tell somebody they're the one to get out? That fundamentally was the problem in 2016.
I'm going to stand, but you get out, right? That's going to be like, no, you go and I'll stay. I mean,
you jump off the bridge, I'm going to stay.
Exactly. I mean, you can see how that conversation goes. And again, this is the difference between the establishment donors and the base, where the base is saying, we want Trump. We can see it in his fundraising. The establishment, they get together and they're trying to, reboot Ron DeSantis. There's a real disconnect there.
Yeah. Let's talk about your book. I mentioned that, of course, Filthy Rich Politicians. It is out now. Everyone can buy it. You talk essentially in there about how candidates or how politicians become so wealthy, what they make on Capitol Hill, but how they actually make so much money. And one thing that has been pointed out in Governor Ron DeSantis' first fundraising quarter is one of his largest campaign expenses is private planes. That candidates will argue they need them to get around because of their schedules, but his campaign paid nearly $500,000 in these travel expenses. I believe it was $480,000. I mean, given the fact that you cover so much of this political wealth and what politicians do, what did you make of that number?
Well, I do think that one of the reasons that we can't get rid of politicians, that they stay in Congress forever, as I read in the book, that the founders wanted them to leave the farm and go to Washington D.C., but now they'd rather buy the farm than leave the farm. They go back to the farm. I think it's because of this lifestyle. They become accustomed, this lifestyle they've become accustomed to. And it wouldn't surprise me if Ron DeSantis, has a taste now for flying private. I've heard it's nice. But by the way, Ron DeSantis just became a millionaire. He was, as recently as like 2 months ago, his net worth was $300,000, and now because of his book, he's a millionaire. So maybe he's a filthy rich politician.
All right, Matt Lewis, Karen Finney, thank you both, and good to see you here in Washington. All right, Alabama Democrats are ripping Governor Kay Ivey over the newly proposed congressional map that she has just signed. It includes just one majority black district in the entire state. One Alabama state lawmaker says it is offensive and wrong, and he's my next guest.
I did have hearing aids from another company. I was just frustrated. I almost gave up. With Miracle Ear, it's all about service. They're personable, they're friendly. I'm very happy with them.
We provide you with a free lifetime of aftercare, meaning free checkups, cleanings, and adjustments.
I see someone new, someone happy. It's really made a difference.
Call Miracle Ear at 1-800-MIRACLE and schedule your free, no-obligation hearing evaluation today.
I'll always take care of you.
The ADT Safety Days event. Get up to 30% off your system featuring Google Nest products. Get ADT self-setup with no long-term contracts and free shipping. Or let our security experts install your system for convenience and peace of mind. Call or shop online today to save up to 30%.
Martial arts is my passion.
I work out whenever I can.
But with my moderate to severe eczema, it can be tough.
Now I'm staying ahead of it.
Dupixent helps heal your skin from within, so you can have clearer skin and noticeably less itch. Serious allergic reactions can occur that can be severe. Tell your doctor about new or worsening eye problems such as eye pain or vision changes, including blurred vision, joint aches and pain, or a parasitic infection. Don't change or stop asthma medicines without talking to your doctor. Ask your doctor about Dupixent.
If you struggle and struggle and struggle with CPAP, you should check out Inspire. No mask, no hose, just sleep. Inspire, sleep apnea innovation. Learn more and view important safety information at inspiresleep.com.
My face was like the elephant in the room.
I had it for so long, makeup would never cover it up.
This is melasma. I'm trying to get rid of it. I've tried everything.
Stop suffering from melasma with Muesli Face RX. Prescription skincare delivered straight to your door.
For me, it was my last resort since I had almost given up.
I actually saw results within the week.
Now that Muesli is out there, people aren't thinking about my melasma anymore. They just see the confident young woman.
See for yourself at muesli.com/TV.
My name is Joshua Florence, and one thing I learned being a firefighter is plan ahead. You don't know what you're getting into, but at the end of the day, you know you have a team behind you that can help you. Not having to worry about the future makes it possible to make the present as best as it can be for everybody.
That open kitchen, definitely the one.
But how can you sell your house when we're stuck on a space station for months?
Nice.
Open Door gives you the flexibility to sell and buy on your timeline.
Like that. See you at the housewarming.
Can do this.
Luxury that lets you feel infinitely you.
I need a cooler night.
Trying to ice me out of the bed?
They're only on game nights.
You know you're retired, right?
Am I?
Yeah.
The Queen Sleep Number 360 C2 Smart Bed is now only $8.99, plus free home delivery when you add an adjustable base. Shop now only at Sleep Number.
Alabama Republicans are pushing through a new congressional map, openly defying the nation's highest court tonight. Last month, the Supreme Court stunned Alabama lawmakers when it ruled that they needed to redraw the map to create 2 majority black districts, or something quite close to it, as the court said, to comply with the 1965 Voting Rights Act and to better correlate with the state's 27% black population. The new map drops the percentage of black voters in the existing majority black district from 55 to roughly 50%, and only increases the second district's share of black voters to about 40% from about 30%. The Republican supermajority is calling this a compromise, but Democrats in the state say it is offensive and wrong. The map now has to be approved by a federal court, which I should note is set to hear the case next month. This is a fight, though, that is not just about Alabama. It has legal implications far beyond, given 10 other states are also waging similar battles. Critics say this decision, though, in Alabama echoes the worst parts of the state's history, including my next guest tonight, Democratic state legislator Prince Chestnut of Selma. And thank you, Representative, for being here. I mean, Republicans in the state, including Chris Pringle, say that this map allows minorities to elect a candidate of their choosing. They said this is the best compromise that they could get. But is it a fair map in your view?
Absolutely not. And I think what's really pressing is the fact that the Alabama legislature, the supermajority, did not respect the ruling of the Supreme Court.
Well, as we know, Alabama has, as we both know, we're both from there, has a fraught history with courts having to get involved on laws related to voting and civil rights. I mean, it was a legal challenge in the state in the early 1990s that forced the creation of that 7th congressional district, which is right now the state's only majority black district. I mean, does it surprise you that you're still having this fight in Alabama all these years later?
Yes, it does, because I have ancestors that were involved in this fight, and my grandmother was one of the people to ask for desegregation in the Selma City school system more than 50 years ago. Have a relative that was a lawyer that fought these fights 50 years ago, and I just find it surprising and stunning that I'm still fighting those same fights that my ancestors fought.
What was your grandmother's name?
Her name was Velberta Chestnut.
And the fact that you do see that through line from there to where we are now and to what you're fighting through, I mean, what does it say to you?
Well, it just says to me that that there are many in our home state that have a very recalcitrant and an obstreperous mindset that they're just not going to do the right thing unless a federal court makes them do it.
What do you think your grandmother would think of the fight that you're fighting now?
I have no doubt that she would be very proud of me. I think, when you're born in Chestnut in Alabama, especially if you choose the profession that I chose, you have no choice. You have to serve people.
This isn't just an Alabama thing. And also, I think the through lines to Washington here is part of this, because Senator Steve Livingston, who is a Republican from Scottsboro, said he spoke with House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, who he said told him, I'm interested in keeping my majority. I mean, what do you say to the Kevin McCarthys, the other national Republicans that are getting involved in the redrawing of Alabama's map?
Yes. In Alabama, we always say we should have Alabama solutions for Alabama problems. Well, if that's the case, then why is someone from California calling in to Alabama dictating the terms by which we engage in legislation? I just find it that patently offensive, and it is meddling at the highest order, and we should reject that. But instead of rejecting that, it seems like many in the legislature accepted that that push to do something that would violate the Supreme Court order. Because I think when you look at that map that they drew, there's no way that you can look at that map and look at how the black population is very contiguous and compact. You can draw two districts with majority minority districts easily. You can do that easily. And if you can't do both with over 50%, you can get something very close to it.
Alabama State Representative Prince Chestnut, thank you for coming on.
Experience. Listening more than talking. And a personalized plan to guide you through a changing world.
When it comes to clogged gutters, you might say I've seen it all. Leaves, spinners, wiffle balls, you name it. Because any gutter open to the elements is going to gather debris and clog over time. And that can cause all kinds of problems. But get Leaf Filter and the problem's solved.
Leaf Filter's patented technology keeps debris out of your gutters. The life of your home.
It's dependable, proven.
Or visit leaffilter.com.
This is the biggest target we've uncovered since Bin Laden. 22 years we've been trying to get this guy. Ready to do my job, ma'am? If your cover is blown, there is no saving you. You up for playing outside the lines?
Is that your lioness right there?
That is the lioness.
What's the greatest invention of all time? New hands-free Skechers slip-ins. You just slip in and they're on. It's like they have an invisible built-in shoehorn so your foot slides into place without bending down or touching your shoes. Then the heel pillow technology keeps your foot comfy and secure. Hands-free Skechers slip-ins.
Competitive eater Joey Chestnut does it. It's like a champ.
Call me Joey Pistachio.
Wonderful pistachios. Get cracking.
From road trip
to, are we there yet? So many ways to save. Life ready, wallet happy. That's 365 by Whole Foods Market.
More shopping? You should watch your spending, honey.
I'm saving with Liberty Mutual, Mom. They customize your car insurance, so you only pay for what you need. Check it out. You could save $700 just by switching.
Ooh, I'll look into that. Let me put a reminder on my phone. Save $700.
Pick up Dad from airport. Oh, only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty. Dr. Sanjay Gupta explores science-backed solutions for a healthier you every week on his podcast, Chasing Life. Listen to Chasing Life with Dr. Sanjay Gupta and all your favorite CNN podcasts, ad-free on Amazon Music, now included with Prime.
False or misleading search results can negatively impact your life. A bad online reputation can put you at significant risk of losing job opportunities or new customers. Reputation Defender helps clean up your search results, wiping away negative first impressions, allowing truthful, positive content to rise to the top. Don't you deserve to have more control over how you're represented?
He sent Worthy, where they took care of everything and auctioned it on her terms. Then Worthy sent Lila her money. You're worthy of more. Get started at worthy.com.
I'm Manu Raju on Capitol Hill, and this is CNN.
Closed captioning is brought to you by Audiobook Network. Authors tell your story. Produce an audiobook with us.
Want to earn more profits and find a new audience for your published book? Produce an audiobook. We handle narration, production, and digital distribution.
800-753-8559.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. CNN Primetime with Abby Phillip starts right now. Hi, Abby.
Hey, Caitlin. Thank you so much. And good evening, everyone. I'm Abby Phillip. A big guest lineup, a lot of news tonight on CNN Primetime. Joining me tonight, Neil Katyal, Miles Taylor, presidential candidate, Francis Suarez, one of the Northwestern players breaking his silence on hazing, the singer, Monica, on why she stopped her concert when she noticed something in the crowd. And we'll discuss the politics of course, Barbie, as the movie crushes expectations despite right-wing outrage. But first, tonight, one of the big legal questions as Donald Trump awaits a possible third indictment. Did he believe his own lies about the election? New CNN reporting, lifting the curtain on the evidence that Jack Smith is now obtaining. We're told that witnesses are being asked about an Oval Office meeting in February of 2020 in which Trump praised improvements to the security of the United States elections. And that includes the use of paper ballots and security audits. So why is this significant? Well, because weeks later, he would start spreading voter fraud conspiracy theories to begin undermining the election results.
I don't want to see a crooked election. This election will be the most rigged election in history. They know it's going to be fraudulent. It's going to be fraud all over the place. I've been complaining very strongly about the ballots, and the ballots are a disaster.
And we will speak with Neil Katyal in just a few minutes. But just hours after the governor of Texas tells President Biden, we'll see you in court tonight, the Justice Department is obliging. The DOJ is suing the state over the floating border wall that's made of buoys in the Rio Grande River. Greg Abbott is now refusing to take them down, but this comes as whistleblowers allege that Texas officials are using razor wire, booby traps, essentially to deter migrants, in addition to pushing them back in the water at risk of drowning. Rosa Flores reports from the border.
Abby, let me show you the border barrier that's at the center of this legal battle. You have to look beyond two sets of concertina wire to the middle of the river, and you see the string of buoys. Now, they are 4 feet in diameter, and they are anchored to the bottom of that waterway. Now, the federal government filed this lawsuit after Mexico's top diplomat complained to Washington that these buoys violated 2 treaties. And also after more than 80 U.S. Democratic lawmakers complained to the President of the United States and asked him to investigate and to file legal action. Well, now Governor Greg Abbott digging in his heels, saying that Texas has sovereign authority based on the U.S. and Texas constitutions. And then we've also learned that the office of the Texas Attorney General says that it's ready for this legal fight in federal court. Abby?
Thanks to Rosa for that. And joining me now is 2024 GOP presidential candidate and Republican mayor of Miami, Francis Suarez. Mayor Suarez, thank you very much. I want to start by asking to you to respond to what Rosa just laid out there. The DOJ's argument essentially is that these barriers, aligned with razor wire, are a public safety and a humanitarian risk. Not to mention that Mexico says that they could be on their territory, but this is a part of the border where not just adults are crossing, but families, children, women as well. What's your response to that?
I think this is a symbol of how desperate local leaders have gotten and state leaders have gotten with the out-of-control crisis that we're seeing at the border, where we've seen essentially a wave and release policy by this administration that has really, it's been one of the few things that bipartisan elected officials, including Democrat mayors, have complained about. We're seeing, obviously, a human trafficking crisis at the border where it seems like the only ones who are benefiting from it are the coyotes and the cartels. And then we're seeing a fentanyl crisis that is driven by China using Mexico to import fentanyl into the United States, which has killed 80 to 90,000 Americans. That's the equivalent of a 747 crashing every single day. So that's, we're not treating the border as the crisis that it is. We have to stop this migration so that we can focus on a solution. We're never going to solve the problem